Also going to let
Thank
in
you.
one person. And I'm going to mute everybody. I do have the ability to unmute you if that's difficult. Linda, I'm unmuting you. And if you want to chat, feel free to chat or have a question, or you can raise your hand virtually.
Thank you, Vanessa. I appreciate that. I wanted to welcome everyone and introduce myself. I'm Linda Muskin, and along with Sharon Stein, we are now the co-leads for the Tikkun Olam committee. And we are very grateful to Wendy Rhodes for getting the ball moving and shepherding us to this point so we could actually effectively take over the responsibilities. That's the goal. And if there are concerns or complaints, by all means, let me know, because we can always do better with some direction. Beyond that, I think I'd like to ask Rabbi Moffat to please step in and speak for a few moments, and then we'll talk to the speakers.
Well, hi, everybody. It's so nice to see such a great group. Just a really wonderful group of people on this call. I know we're going to do a lot of good. I thought I wanted to share a couple of texts with you tonight. And it actually, I think, speaks to how we go about Tikkun Olam. And these are two verses from Deuteronomy 15. So Book of Deuteronomy, chapter 15. And these are two verses that seem to contradict each other totally. And so I want to see how you would reconcile them. So the first verse says, "You will have no poor among you." I'll say that again. You will have no poor among you. And then a couple of verses later, the same chapter in Deuteronomy, it says, "The poor will never cease to be in your land." How is that possible? One verse says there's never, ever going to be any more poor people. And the other says the poor will never cease to be in your land. There's always going to be poverty. There's always going to be those who have great needs. So how can we reconcile those two verses? How do you make sense of them? What do you think? Remember that according to Jewish law tradition, the Torah cannot have contradictions. Everything has to fit together in some way or another. There has to be some underlying message that connects those verses. What do you think? Amy?
Because we're always there for them. It's our purpose to be there for them. So in essence, they're not poor because we're taking them under our wings.
Beautiful. So a sense that it's in a true community, there really aren't the poor because they have backing. There's always there are people to look out. That's beautiful. What else? How else do we make sense of that? Andy?
Different. I don't know. I'm thinking that poverty is a relative term. And how, who is poor? Someone who doesn't have money or someone who doesn't have any mercy? I think you have to define that. And I certainly think that it would be probably a deeper level on that. And then the relativity of the, how are we measuring that?
That's beautiful. So maybe poverty isn't just simply a materialist idea. Wealth is much more than just simply money or funds. It can be relationships, depth, spirituality. So the meaning of poor is not simply about what we have. It's much larger than that. Yeah, that's good. Karen? Unmute.
I was thinking about, I met this man who runs a food ministry in the city, and he works with people who are homeless and housing insecure. And the way he approaches the work is, it's not him kind of working for or with others, it's them all working together. And so maybe, I don't know, one way to think about this is that we all have all things within us, and that there's, your today could always be in poverty tomorrow, and your poverty tomorrow could always be in resources the next day. And that, to never see ourselves like divided, that there's this other of like people over there, but that there's always all of it, that that things change, and there's always all possibilities for all of us.
It's beautiful. Yeah. There's that always sense of relative that it's not, these categories aren't strictly defined. Yeah. Any other thoughts? Yeah, Amy?
Could it also be related to the Musar teaching that we all have within us all of these? It's just that some are more out of balance than another.
Yeah, that's nice. That's nice. Yeah. I think that makes a lot of sense. It's these categories, maybe the idea of poor and rich are just too inflexible. They don't really, they don't capture the full depth of our human experience. Any other thoughts?
Floyd, go ahead, and then Pamela.
Yeah, to me, the first verse was the goal. The second verse is the reality.
Right. There's something. So we always want to try to make sure there is no poor, but in some ways there are things that are not in our control. We can't, there are people who find shelter and who leave that shelter for whatever reason, may mental health reasons, maybe, terrible experience in childhood, who knows, or someone abuses them where they are staying. But in some ways, there's lots of things we can't control. That's great.
Well, I also think no matter how much money you have in the world, if you don't have your health, you're poor, your health. So health has nothing to do with wealth. But if you don't have health, and if you're in pain and you're in poor spirits.
Yeah, that's great. That's great. That maybe poverty isn't the end all and be all. There's other ways of defining it than just material. So I'll give you kind of the way I've always interpreted it. And I think this kind of, all of this is right. There's no definite interpretation. That's the beauty of Jewish tradition. But I see this as referring to both individual social action and systemic change. So the idea that you will have no poor among you, that is the kind of call for systemic approaches, for the kind of things like political advocacy, and that we should do everything we can to try to reduce poverty in the traditional sense of having better school, working for better schools, more equitable schools, working for communities that affordable housing, things that we can do on a much broader level, so that ultimately in the ideal society, we wouldn't have so much poverty. That's a call for systemic change. And then the second verse, the poor will never cease to be in your land, as kind of Floyd said earlier, that's the reality. So we actually have to do work with our hands. We have to go to a soup kitchen and help. We have to give money to different organizations that are on the ground doing the hard work. We have to do both. On the one hand, there's a systemic change that we all are working towards. And on the other hand, there's the hand-to-hand, there's the individual change, there's providing, there's lobbying on immigration policy in Congress, and there's welcoming refugee families into our community. They're both parts of what it means to do Tikkun Olam, and it's our responsibility to do both of them. And they both exist in the Torah side by side. So thank you, and thank you for everything you're doing in both those areas.
Thank you very much, Rabbi. That was thoughtful and spot on. I really appreciate your direction on that. Thank you. Just to sort of set the table for what's going to happen next, what I'd like to do is go through 3 major groups and ask you to update us on what's going on. First with the Refugee Committee, then the Green Group, and then RAC and RAC Illinois. And following that, we'll have a little time to question everybody about what's going on. With that in mind, Amy, it's been a big day with the refugees. What's going on?
Oh, thank you, Vanessa. So as we're gathered here tonight, they have arrived. Their plane was due to come in at 4:45. So God willing, everything went smoothly. We had 6 congregants plus Cantor J who greeted them at the airport, along with a case manager from Hayes who does speak Pashto. So 3 weeks of groceries were delivered this afternoon. And this evening, Marcia Denberg and Carol Green are bringing them dinner from Kabul House, which I'm sure has already been done. And the original housing, for those who don't know, had fallen through. And so Hayes found temporary housing in the Edgewater neighborhood on Granville until February 1st, where they're going to be taking occupancy of a 3-bedroom apartment in the Uptown area. The address is 927 West Wilson. And we have 2 individuals on the team who are going to walk the neighborhood to map out places of importance so that the mentoring team, when they step in, they can educate them on the things that in the area that they need to be familiar with, like the schools, the bank, the grocery stores, transportation, things like that. And this location is 4600 North between Lawrence and Montrose around Broadway. It's very near to the Red Line stops. It's also close to Truman College. So perhaps they can take English there. I'm not sure how that's going to play out. It's a little farther east from our other families, but close to public transportation, which may be a real benefit for them. At this moment, unless something changes, we have our mover, William, who's going to be picking up furniture at David Macklin's house on Sunday morning, bright and early. And then we're going to stop off at Macomb, hopefully before school begins, and pick up the rest of the donations, hopefully around 8:30-ish. And then the group is going to head over to Wilson and set up the apartment for them. And we do have another family coming through Refugee 1 sometime in March. And we don't know where they're coming from yet, but hopefully when we go through all the furniture, we're going to have enough for both families. If not, we may then do another shower or something to get some other items. So Len and Alan hope to join Jessica from Hayes to do a walkthrough on Thursday. And actually our mentors are going to begin mentoring on Saturday, February 5th. And the tutors will begin tutoring on Sunday, the 6th. So just a little background on the family. There's the mom and the dad. They're the Said Khan's family. That's the last name. That's how they're referred to. There's the dad and the mom. And then they have 2 sons who are 20 and 19. And then there's a daughter who is 15. And then there's 2 younger boys who are 9 and 6. And we are co-sponsoring this with Hayes Immigration and Citizenship. They are separate from the National Hayes, and they're based in Skokie, and they're part of the Jewish Family Services. And this actually is our 4th family that we've sponsored collectively. One was from Legacy Lakeside, one was from Legacy Solal, and now we're on our 2nd family with Macomb. And I think we just want to really say thank you to the community for all the donations we've received. It was truly just so much act of loving kindness. We would never have been able to do this without the generosity and commitment for Tikkun Olam from our community. So I just really want to say thank you with immense gratitude and appreciation from the entire committee. And that's my report.
Wow. Thank you. This is no small matter. I mean, I was at the house today for a hot minute just to drop off some food, and that place was buzzing with folks moving furniture, putting away groceries, whatever. What a welcome. This is amazing.
Well, this house the townhouse was completely furnished.
Right, right.
So, right. So yeah, so that's exciting times. I hope Sunday's a little bit warmer when we do the move-in.
Wouldn't that be nice?
Yeah.
Amy, do you know if Hayes connects them with the other family that arrived just a couple weeks ago through Israel's synagogue, I think?
Yes, they did come. I would think that they would. I would think that there are programs set up to help them collectively, probably, because I can't imagine their level of trauma, stress, and fear. And so I think that Hayes must be very sensitive to that. And we're going to be doing trainings like coming up right now. And so I'm sure Hayes will address that with us.
Awesome. Thank you so much for everything you're doing.
Oh, thank you.
Alice, did you have your hand up? No. Okay. I just didn't want to overlook something here. Amy, thank you. And please give our thanks to the committee as well. This is huge.
Welcome.
Well done.
Thank you.
The next question to look at, I think, is the green group, and I leave that in the hands of Andy and Jay. Between the two of you, can someone tell
Yeah.
us what's going on, please?
Yeah, where are you, Jay? Let's see.
Yeah, I'm up here. You want to go ahead, Andy?
Sure. Okay, so this is actually my first time at one of these meetings. And it was really nice that Rabbi Moffat started with the Deuteronomy, because I think everything needs to be integrated. And, you know, in the green group, we would really like to see our work, and anything that has to do with the earth is really part of anything else. I'm going to just say, by example, today there was an alert from the Illinois Environmental Council that we need to write to our, I think it's our state legislators, because the people in the fence line communities really need to have a say in what is coming into their areas. So I just thought it exemplified how things are very linked, and it does us well to keep that in mind, be it teaching or what our efforts are. You know, there's just not, we should really keep in mind that we're working together. So you want to know what we're doing specifically. We just had Tu B'Shvat, and we, I don't know how many people saw, we offered a thing for kids to do to tell what we have from trees that we wouldn't have if we didn't. Unfortunately, only one family participated, but that's okay. They were very sweet. And Blair Brenner, through her foundation, is planting a tree in each one's honor. That was the promise. And we got a thank you from the mother for doing this, offering this. So, you know, it's just an impetus to keep that in mind. We want to involve the school and the kids. And we have a few plans. See what Ashley says. We are thinking about 2 tree walks in April, one in April or March, and then one later, one when the trees are not in bloom and one when they are leafed out, and that would be a family activity. And we will continue with our pollinator garden. We also we're very lucky on our committee to have so many environmentalists. Jay is the expert in solar and EVs, and he's going to be doing more talks on that. There's one scheduled in June. We'll put that in the calendar. Not even sure where it's being, but doesn't really matter. Right, Jay? I don't know who you're doing it from. That one's on decarbonization.
Yeah, I know I'm doing one in February with Go Green. And then I think we had talked about doing one later in the year, or getting, an adult ed speaker to speak about intersectionality of Jewish values and care of the earth. Earth Day, Earth Month in April. We're going to look into collaborating with some other congregations, green groups, to maybe bring in a speaker, so we can have a larger audience. I think the more we can work with these other groups, we're all kind of fighting the same fight here, and we all have good ideas and ideas that other groups haven't thought of, and makes a lot of sense to collaborate as much as possible. So pre-COVID, I had met with a lot of heads of other green groups of Chicago area congregations, and that kind of fizzled out, but looking to get that restarted again.
You want to, I don't mean to interrupt, but it's being put off till Earth Month, but we had an iPad collection that we had to cancel because of the weather and COVID. And again, this is a project Blair Brenner is involved in. And so iPads will be collected, and another company called Blue Star will be refurbishing them for use for challenged people, maybe some developmental, I'm not exactly sure. I think it's a developmentally disabled population. So not only will they be not thrown in the trash. They have a really good purpose. Again, working together for different ends and showing how we're interconnected.
Andy,
yeah.
Andy, I actually think those iPads are going to kids to help them read and who have who are deaf. And Blair work and speech
Yeah.
problems, and they work with Blair's foundation.
Yeah.
So it's
Okay.
specific,
Thank
and
you
there's
for the,
programs that can only be run on an iPad.
on these iPads, right? So that's why we can't just have any kind of screen that you don't want. Okay, so that was part of Earth Month. We'd love to have another zero waste event, but we are going to wait and see what happens in terms of what we can do safely. And then what was
So
the
we're
other-
looking at the building itself as well.
yeah, we'll talk about
We
the
we did an
building.
energy audit through Faith in Place, and we're going to hopefully hear from them soon. I know Rich has been in touch with them and should have some information. I looked into Rooftop Solar for the building, and it turns out that the roof is too close to needing replacement or major work done to make it make sense at this point, but we'll be looking into community solar, so sourcing our energy from large solar fields in rural Illinois as an alternative, which could potentially save money as well.
Andy, I have a question regarding the iPads. Who takes
Uh-huh.
responsibility for wiping them of all the data? Is that something?
I
we
think
do?
this Blue Star company does that.
Okay.
Yeah, Amy? Oh,
To Blair, and then she had it completely clean for me because I couldn't do it myself. And there's someone that she uses in downtown Highland Park who's fantastic. So, and she's very grateful for getting the iPads. It really does help her foundation and the children.
right. So a very good, a project that has lots of positives and again, is definitely within the green group initiatives and things we want to do. So I don't know, we're some of the things are in the planning in terms of the kids. We are looking into seeing if the school is interested, and we want to connect with the Jewish Youth Climate Movement, which I don't know if the cart comes before the horse. So I'm in touch with Ashley, and then we'll contact them to see if there are some Jewish climate activists in this area. Whether or not we have to, just one of the things we're working on. We'll see. Okay. So I think that pretty much, I don't know, is there any other?
I think that about covers it.
And then we'll start on our garden again.
Yeah, we're going to get
And
habitat
plant it.
certification for it.
Oh, yeah, the National Wildlife Certification, right?
How do you, I mean, just quickly, how do you do that?
Okay, well, there's an effort being undertaken to become a National Wildlife Certified Community. Evanston is one. We've gotten some guidance from them, and there's a woman in Highland Park who's really heading this up through Go Green Highland Park. And the League of Women Voters is somewhat involved. It isn't really that difficult, and it's based on points, and you get certain points for doing certain things, and you get certain, like a building would get more points than a house, and we need 250 points. And, you know, we think we have quite a few things going for us already with our pollinator garden. And it would be something to be proud of and to be part of the community. Yeah.
I think it's a cool idea. I think it's very cool.
Yeah.
Well, thank you very much. I had no idea, and I'm happy to be informed. Thank you, Andy and Jay both.
Linda, I have a question for Andy and Jay. So Andy and Jay, when the weather was better before Omicron, we were doing some collections for other causes, like for hunger, we did a collection, and for homelessness, we did a collection, and we talked about collecting the iPads in the spring, and that's great. I was wondering if there's some kind of community activity, and you've discussed some, that would kind of be the opposite of a collection, like composting or some recycling something. Have you thought about those kinds of and you obviously know more about this than I do. But have you thought about those types of all congregation projects where we could get everyone involved in looking differently, perhaps at the stuff that they have accumulating in their own homes?
Well, we haven't talked about that specifically, but we're open to looking at whatever there's a need for or a request for. We didn't mention this, but what Jay mentioned, having a program. We would really like to have an environmental adult enrichment twice a year. We'd like to be on the docket for having two. Good, I took care of that. So, that would be the kind of thing it might fit into. And the city is now negotiating to have, or they call it organics, because when they pick it up, it's not really compost yet. So to pick up organics included in our weekly pickup. And I can say it's not decided yet. If you could write to the city council and say you'd like that idea. The cost is going to be very minimal per family. And I was actually having a conversation today that, it's not going to be more than $3.05. But, in respect to people that might be a bigger amount, we could even have that we collect food for people. We could have I was thinking of a fund for that. Anyway, so it's in the hopper for our community. So that lends itself. We've certainly talked about having, composting organic food here, but I don't think the time has been right. There hasn't been any food. But when we had our 1-0 waste dinner, we did, I think we did compost. I think Jenny took it home, I think, or something.
The fascinating thing is in Deerfield, we can compost.
Yeah.
And I can look down my block and it's a special garbage can. And I'm shocked because I don't think it's that expensive at people who don't do it. So I think maybe a campaign for people in Deerfield. Are you doing this? Thank you. If you're not, can we help you? I just don't understand why people wouldn't do it. I feel so good when I compost every day.
Well, keep talking, Vanessa. And as I say, I spoke to the SWACO guy today for over an hour. It was kind of a long call, but I did learn a lot. And it reinforced some of the things that I keep hearing. And his feeling is, which is the same as the decarbonation that's going on in the Jewish world. They have a whole campaign to decarbonize. That when people change their minds when they see their neighbors doing something, and then they see, oh, that one's doing that. Well, maybe I want to do it. It doesn't come from the fact that it's so stupid that you don't, it's not like that. But this is what everyone who's experienced with this says. So there must be some validity in it. Telling your story and seeing what your neighbors are doing and talking. So say, oh, it's great. I really want to do this. That, I'm really worried about the planet. And I wanted, there's opportunities all through the day. Oh, I don't think I want a plastic bag. I like to think about the earth. It's just, you get in a new habit. So
It's totally a habit. Yeah, exactly.
and it's not hard, and you get more positives than negatives.
So I would say the Green Group is doing a lot of education with the congregation about all these types of things. And the more you can do, the merrier.
Thank
And the Tikkun Olam committee is here to help you make that happen. So keep doing it.
Thank you. Well, we did have a program in November too on the pipeline and fossil fuel.
That's right.
And Native American, as you know. So I think that was, I think that worked well.
Thanks.
Thank you.
Thank you for your work on this. This is huge. And if there's anybody regarding the Highland Park City Council that we should specifically be chatting with.
No, Council, City HPIL, I think this is a great idea. Let's move forward with it. Just, that's all you have to say.
Okay, great.
Thank you.
Thank you. I can do that. All right. Next, we would like to hear from Jack Kaplan regarding RAC and RAC Illinois. Jack?
Thanks, Linda. Good evening, everyone. It's great to see you all. I'm a member of the core team for RAC Illinois, and I'm going to give you a kind of a summary of what's been going on with RAC Illinois. I've actually to make sure I didn't miss anything. I've put together some prepared remarks, and I'm going to go through them just to make sure I cover everything. So I'll do that, and then, of course, would be very happy to answer any questions or have discussion about any of the things I'm going to share with you tonight about RAC Illinois. So just for those who may not be as familiar, the Illinois Religious Action Center of Reform Judaism, otherwise known as RAC Illinois, is the collectively organized Reform Jewish community in Illinois, building and leveraging our power for a more just and compassionate land of Lincoln for all. RAC Illinois includes about 50,000 Reform Jews and 25 congregations across Illinois. We are part of the National Religious Action Center of Reform Judaism, which is the social justice hub of the Reform Jewish movement. RAC is led by local clergy, lay leaders, and youth. And our core team that I made reference to has representatives from all of those on our core team. Our priority areas are racial justice and immigration justice. We launched in spring of 2018, and we've celebrated a number of victories along with coalition partners in the 3 years since then. One that I'd like to highlight tonight, because it's still relevant to our work going forward, is about a year ago, actually January of 2021, we were proud to help secure passage of the Pretrial Fairness Act as part of the Illinois Network for Pretrial Justice. This act completely eliminates the role of money bond in Illinois, which will ensure access, ensuring access so that wealth will no longer be or play a role in the release or detention decisions affecting over 200,000 residents, disproportionately Black and brown people who are in our jails on a pretrial basis. The passage of this bill was only made possible because of the thousands of people and more than 100 organizations in our really our robust and diverse movement for pretrial reform. However, as that bill, because it was part of a larger bill and has been controversial, it's continues to be part of our legislative advocacy this year. We're continuing to work with our coalition partners to protect and defend this landmark legislation from ongoing threats to undermine or compromise the thrust of this law. So one of the bodies of work we'll be working on during the spring session in Springfield will be to defend and protect that legislation as needed. Then in addition to that, really brand new news that hasn't been shared publicly, but I'm very comfortable sharing with this group, is that just this past week, the core team of RAC Illinois decided to participate in a fair housing campaign during this year's state legislative session that would make access to housing in Illinois more equitable and just. This bill would prohibit housing discrimination based on source of income. Source of income is how an individual legally receives their money in order to pay for their housing. Examples are wages, housing subsidies, Social Security disability, child support, and alimony. Sources of income discrimination refers to instances when a landlord denies or otherwise treats unfairly households solely because the household utilizes public benefits, rental assistance, or other non-employment sources to pay for their housing. The goal of this campaign is to make illegal all forms of source of income discrimination and to bring Illinois into alignment with 19 other states that already have similar protections. This bill has already passed the State House, and we will be looking to set up meetings with state senators where our RAC members have relationships or significant numbers of congregants as constituents. A date for the launch of that campaign and our work going forward should be announced very shortly, and you certainly will be notified of that as soon as we have a date for the launch of our campaign. At the national level, regrettably, as you all I'm sure know, our recent campaign in support of the Freedom to Vote Act and the John Lewis Voting Rights Act really reached an impasse with the recent vote by the US Senate not to pass those bills and their inability to change the filibuster rules that would have allowed for a simple majority to pass those bills. I am pleased to say that earlier during the summer of last year, we did have meetings with staff from both of our senators, both our members, both Senator Durbin and Senator Duckworth, to enlist their ongoing support. And we had 150 members, RAC members, who participated in one or both of those meetings with staff, with our senators. And both Senator Duckworth and Senator Durbin have been and continue to be strong supporters of these critical voting rights bills. Our leadership, excuse me, in the Reform Movement's 2020 Every Voice, Every Vote campaign brought more than 1,000 leaders from 26 congregations with, I might add, a very strong and mighty contingent from Macomb, Hillel, Lakeside into action to generate more than 40,000 voter contacts in Illinois and through our grassroots partners to those targeted for voter suppression in Wisconsin. This nonpartisan get out the vote effort was grounded in our belief that democracy is strongest when everyone participates. And so again, in 2022, RAC is planning a national civic engagement campaign to make sure that every voter counts and every vote is counted in the upcoming midterm elections. We will be working with a broad and diverse group of partners, some new, some from our last campaign, to apply best practices and have the greatest impact on the upcoming elections. By early June, we expect to launch the campaign, conduct leadership training, and set goals. During the summer, we will ramp up our mobilization efforts, and we are scheduled to peak our actions and work in September and October, hopefully with a boost from clergy and lay leaders with calls to action during the high holidays. As I mentioned earlier, Macomb played an outsized role during our last civic engagement campaign, and it is our hope that we can count on you and your recruitment of other congregants to step up again this year. Finally, during our first 3 years, we were blessed to have Julie Webb, a member of Macomb Solo Lakeside, serving as our lead organizer extraordinaire. Since her retirement last summer, we have had the support of an interim part-time lead organizer. We hope to have a new permanent full-time lead organizer on board in the very near future. Macomb Solo Lakeside has been a top-tier congregation since the inauguration of RAC Illinois, and it is our sincere hope that your example and leadership will continue this year and for many years to come. So I'll stop there. Sorry for preparing the prepared remarks, but like I said, I want to make sure I covered everything, and happy to answer any questions people have about anything that I just raised.
Wendy? Whoops.
Thank you, Jack. I have a question. I'm going to roll back the clock to our 2020 civic engagement campaign. And so I'm thrilled that there's going to be a 2022 campaign. Has the RAC articulated yet how that will be approached? Because there were 3 legs to the effort the last time, as I recall.
Yeah.
And my fellow members of the committee could help me remember all of them exactly. I think one was voter engagement, one was youth, and one was, we didn't call it voter suppression, but
Right.
that's what it was.
Yeah, those are basically the pillars.
So will those be the pillars again?
I don't know. Actually, there's a national civic engagement leadership team that is meeting right now. I'm part of that, but they've just started meeting. There was a campaign manager for that at the national level was just identified about a month ago. So they're in the early stages of developing the details of that campaign. So I don't know how they'll play that out. I do know that the voter suppression type of issue is still top of mind and will be some of the work that they'll be looking at doing, particularly in light of a lot of the state laws that were passed in the last year that are attempting to suppress voters in a number of states around the country.
That's helpful. So for those who weren't involved in the civic engagement campaign the first time around, the way we organized was that we designated people who had a passion around one of those three areas. So Amy helped lead on the youth engagement with several of our teams, and it was really a very powerful effort. And then we had Ellen Gusson leading in regards to voter engagement in our own congregation, which entailed making sure people knew where to vote, how to vote, what we did around absentee ballots, so on and so forth. And Rhonda and others, Rhonda Lindner and others, helped with the voter suppression, which entailed, as Jack described, a massive postcard campaign. I don't know if you have at your fingertips, Jack, the number of how many postcards Macomb folks wrote, but there were many.
Yeah, I don't have the numbers, but it was quite significant.
Yeah, so tell your friends that this is coming. We have tentatively sketched in, one of our Tikkun Olam Shabbat services to talk about this civic engagement campaign, because it's really exciting and very important stuff that everybody could rally around.
Yep.
Amy?
You're on mute.
Vanessa has to unmute her.
Back on mute.
Oh, unmute. Oh, here we go.
Now you're good.
Yeah, I've been curious about this for a while. Do you think there will be work that we might do in areas that are more needy of help getting, fairness and eliminating voter suppression? Or do you think this is all going to be in Illinois?
Well, when we did the work in 2020, part of what we did in Illinois, one of the pillars that when you referred to, kind of the voter suppression work, we actually did work in partnership with organizations up in Wisconsin. So we did do work outside of Wisconsin in regard to that part of the work. And so I don't know what the plan is this year for how they're going to kind of go about that, but my guess is there will be opportunities either on a targeted basis or on a national level. Actually, in 2020, there was a national organization we also worked with that allowed us to participate in calls and postcarding in other states. And so my guess is that will be a part of the campaign this time around, and there will be opportunities to play a role in states outside of Illinois.
Okay, thank you. I just think there's so much need that,
I think that's a valid point. The problem is not just in Illinois, for sure. Any other questions for Jack or any of the other committee leaders? No? Oh, this is.
No, I have a question for Amy. Amy, I know you mentioned in regard to the aggregate refugee work that we've done, that we've had how many families, and we've sponsored how many families in total so far? You said 4.
This is our fourth. Solel Lakeside, Legacy Lakeside did one before we joined. Legacy Solel did one, our Rohingya family, that was 2. And then we did together collectively, we did the Congolese family, and now we're doing our Afghanistan family. And there'll be a 5th one in March.
And so the very first family that Lakeside did, where were those folks from?
I don't know a thing about the Lakeside. I don't know that.
Vanessa knows. Vanessa, do you know where they
Say
were?
that again.
The very first family that Lakeside sponsored, refugee family, do you recall where they were from?
Yeah, Vanessa, weren't they from somewhere in Africa, I believe?
Yes,
It was somewhere in Africa.
yeah. And they have since moved from the area, and we had a couple of families who were very close with them.
They move, I'm almost positive they moved to near Green Bay, Wisconsin, I think.
Yes, that's exactly right. And for work,
Right.
Not for the weather, not for the football.
for the weather, yes.
Sorry.
Thank you. Thank you, Amy.
Well, I appreciate everybody's input tonight. It was a great education for me, certainly, about what's going on, as I hope for you as well. And I can't thank you enough for the hard work that you do, and Wendy for the groundwork that she laid for all of this to get started. This is hugely helpful in propelling us in the direction we'd like to go. As we close out, I'd like to ask Cantor Jay to offer us a song, please.
All right. Well, it's been a beautiful day for our community. And I just have so much joy and really love in the heart still from meeting our refugee family. And so I thought it'd be nice to bring in this song of social justice, following up on our celebration of Tu B'Shvat. So you have the words to "We Shall Not Be Moved" in our chat. And in recognition that Tikkun Olam is at the core of who we are. It's our roots. It sustains us. It keeps our Torah and our Judaism alive. So feel free to sing along at home. On the road to freedom, we shall not be moved. On the road to freedom, we shall not be moved, just like the tree planted by the water. We shall not be moved. Oh, we shall not be moved. We shall not be moved, just like the tree standing by the waters. We shall not be moved. We do this work together, we shall not be moved. We do this work together, we shall not be moved, just like the tree it's planted by the waters. We shall not be moved. Last chance. We shall not be moved. We shall not be moved, just like the tree it's planted by the waters. We shall not be moved. Laila Tov, everyone. And thanks, Linda, for a great meeting tonight.
Thank you all. It was a real pleasure, Jay. The music was beautiful. Everybody, thank you for your very hard work, and stay warm and stay healthy.
Thank you. Good night, everyone.
Everyone, good night.
Good night.
Good night,
night.
everybody.
Good night, everyone.